Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all are having a great day so far. So today we will be proceeding with an XStation installation. This is, like I may have mentioned in previous videos, a optical drive emulator. So it was created for the PS1. If we look on the back of this box, we can see this particular that keeps on escaping me. Optical drive emulator for the PS1 is created by Ronda Products. You can pause the video here to read more about the features such as exFAT, FAT32 support, improved loading times over an original drive in good condition because essentially it's all solid state. For more updates, more associated information regarding that. If we look on the inside of the box, we can see some warning information regarding installing a 3D printed SD card mount, which I am not going to be doing for this particular revision of the console. And also what came inside the package are two quick solder boards. One is for a 1000X revision, which is going to be for the early PU8 series motherboards. And the second, which I have over to the side over here, which I will be installing, is this 5500 QSB. So that'll be for later revisions, such as this, the late PU8 motherboard revision. We also have a couple stickers here inside the package, a ribbon cable to connect to the quick solder board, and then to the actual unit itself, which is right here. This is the XStation. And something that I will mention about this in comparison to other sort of products I've installed in the past, this motherboard is fairly thick. It's sort of hard to tell here, but it is quite thick, and it feels very robust. It feels heavy. It does not feel like it will necessarily break, and I think this could also potentially mean that it will dissipate heat very well. So now, before we get into the installation and begin, there is one thing that I wanted to address. Initially, I was intending to install the XStation in this PlayStation 1 console. This particular revision being the SCPH-1000 series, which some have said is exclusive to Japan, having the S-video output and the RCA jacks here on the back. So initially, my intention was to install the optical drive emulator into this particular console. However, when I opened the console in preparation for sort of determining my pathway with this installation, this particular revision motherboard is a PU7. The quick solder boards that I have, including the 1000X here, is only applicable to early PU8 motherboards. This will not work on a PU7 iteration console. So what I will be doing over the next several months, or honestly, however long it takes, is looking at the various vendors, seeing when the PU7 quick solder board is released. Also, looking for further information on how to possibly install that device without a quick solder board, because technically it may not even be needed. Maybe it could be some kind of different way to install it in a PU7 series console. I will continue to research that. However, for the purposes of this video, this will more so be a continuation of the SCPH-5500 series. Like I mentioned, or maybe I didn't, but this particular console is the one with the black spot. So this will be a continuation of that series, installing the XStation and testing it, and testing its general functionality. So with all that being said, we will go ahead and get started with the installation. I will turn the console over. I will disassemble it, and when we get back, we will see a top-down view of the back of the motherboard, and then from there we will transition into the various stages of the installation. So we'll be right back. Alright, now we are back. So, like mentioned before, the back of this console has 6 crosshead screws, which we will be removing. If you are already familiar with the disassembly of the PlayStation 1 or this series of console as well, you can go ahead and fast forward from this. I will go ahead and remove the screws, remove the various components, and maybe give a little bit of a voiceover for any other parts that are a little bit more interesting than others. So these are just, like I mentioned before, standard crosshead screws. Once again, feeling the general pain of working with a small desk. Okay. Only a few more here. And one more. Sort of have to press down a little bit. After we remove the screws, we can go ahead and turn the console over and gently lift the cover. Place it over to the side. Ideally somewhere where it won't fall. Okay. Let's go ahead and unplug the power supply from the board, holding by the edges of the connector over there. And then we can go ahead and unplug the optical drive. Okay. Also unplug the power from the optical drive. Place that over to the side on this desk. Increasingly losing space. Okay, let's see. So it looks like we have some arrows to move here. We can go ahead and also unplug this ribbon connector for the memory card and controller ports. It looks like we have 1, 2, 3. Can't be right. Just 3 screws. I guess we'll see. That doesn't seem right. But let's see. Starting from the bottom, right? Then moving on to the bottom lefts. I do not believe the order actually matters here, but let's just go ahead and remove these screws. Move those things out of the way. Yeah. Just as I thought. I did not think it would be that easy. Or maybe it is. It's still being held by something down here. And of course I hear plenty of dust and debris. Let's see. Let's bend this back a little bit. They just stuck on these plastic pegs. Let me take a look on the inside here. Yeah, it's just sort of clipped. it looks like we have some broken plastic pieces on the side. Moving that over. Yeah, it really was just 3 screws. All right, put that over to the side. And now here we are with this motherboard exposed. I kind of want to move this cable to the side as well. Need to make sure not to forget that. Okay. So I'm going to take a look at the schematic, and when we get back, I'm going to try to clear this space out a little bit and zoom in on the first location for where we are going to be making our connections. So be right back. All right, so here we are on the first area, this particular chip here. This is the IC701. It is labeled as CXD2545Q. So that is Charlie X-Ray Delta 2545 Quebec. Now, on this particular chip, what we will need to do is go ahead and lift pins 80, 78, 77, 74, 56, 47, 46, and 45. So where those pins are located, I'm going to try to make this as clear as I can. Over here we see the indicator for 80. So we have 80 over here on the edge, 79, 78, 77. So that would be 4th from the left. So, and 3rd from the left. So 80, 79, 78, 77. And then if we move all the way over to the right, we see this edge is marked as 51. So 56 would be 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, right here. And then along this right edge, we will have pins 47, 46, and 45. So counting down from 50 in this top right corner, 49, 48, 47, 46, and 45. Okay. All those pins will need to be lifted. I'll be using a little bit of electrical tape to put underneath that pin to prevent any shorts. Okay, so I changed the camera angle a little bit over here just so that it's a little bit easier for me to work with. These little pins, they are very, very tiny. So we will go ahead and get a little bit of flux. Flick this up a little bit. I have already cleaned these pins with alcohol, so they should be clean. I would recommend against attempting to reflow pins that are as tiny as this, since any additional solder that you add to this could introduce a bridge, possibly. However, if that is something that you would like to do, then more power to you. So we will start from pin 80 over here. And what we will do is take this thin blade, and after we apply a little bit of heat, we will just lift the pin up very slightly. So let's go ahead and do that.
A little easy.
Sort of hard to do this in the way of the camera, but Let's try this a different way. Okay, here we are back again with a little bit better of a camera angle so that we can see heat and lift. Easy. Okay. It looks like I may have lifted 2 there. Nice and easy. Okay. So pin 80 is lifted. Let's try bringing that a little bit closer back here. These pins are extremely delicate, so you do need to be careful. Okay. 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 The next pin we will be lifting is 78. Wondering if I could get an even thinner blade than this. Yeah. All right, so we are back now, and I actually ended up lifting those pins off camera because, okay, there we go. Because it was notoriously difficult to try to do this while the camera was in the way. So I think because I was not really able to show that process on camera, whenever you're lifting pins on a chip like this, and just to sort of understand how small these pins are, this is a normal semi-ejector tool, and look at the size of this in comparison to the pin. It's about the same thickness or the same width, but it's just, I guess it's just sort of difficult to appreciate how thick this tiny thing actually is in comparison to these IC legs. Something that I would recommend is that when you're working to lift legs on chips like this, you would use as thin and as narrow of a blade as you possibly can. You would take your soldering iron, make sure it's an adjustable temperature and an appropriate temperature. For this application, I was using 340 degrees. That would be Celsius. And when you are applying heat, or actually it would be Fahrenheit, actually, yeah. Anyway, in any case, when you are applying heat, you would press the tip of the soldering iron. In this case, I'm using this sort of curved tip to the IC leg just for a quick moment. And then underneath, be lifting the pin with the thin blade very slowly. You want to take as much time as you need so that you're not sort of flicking them like I did with the previous part of this video. And really just take your time with that. If you do not have a thin blade, this could be done with a thick blade. However, keep in mind that having the right tools for the job definitely makes this easier. You should not be attempting this mod with a non-adjustable soldering iron, adjustable temperature soldering iron. If you have a thin blade, then you could probably lift these pins individually, just either getting that thin blade in between the IC legs from the side and gently lifting up. However, if you have a thicker blade like this, then I would recommend to slowly lift one pin at a time from each edge until you get to the pin that you need. Then solder back down each of those IC legs back into place. Make sure you're checking continuity, make sure there are no bridges, and you would do so for all the IC lugs that you need to chip, that you need to lift. So starting from the side here on 80, for example, I have 80 is lifted, 79 is down, 78 and 77 are up, 76 and 75 are down, and 74 is up, which is what we were aiming to do. And over here on the right, we have 51, 52, 53, 54, and 55 down, and 56 is up. On the right side here, we have 50, 49, and 48 down, 47, 46, and 45 are up. So also, I would recommend that when you are lifting these IC legs, make sure that these legs are not shorting to each other, that there's enough distance in between. And I would also recommend to use something like Kapton tape or electrical tape to place in between the lifted pins and the board itself to make sure that there is no contact in between those. And that is what I'm going to be doing right now. Just taking a little bit of electrical tape, just like this, going underneath these IC legs and placing the tape down. So now we can see that they are lifted from the board, and doing the same to this side as well. We can also see that these legs are isolated from each other. They're not touching each other for any reason. Let's go ahead, and this tape is a little bit thick wise, but maybe we can get it underneath just a little bit, just enough. It's not exactly pretty, but yeah. Might have to cut this, or maybe not. Let's see if I could actually get away with this. That would be nice, because I don't want to create extra work for myself, please. Yeah, I think that should be sufficient. I almost said sufficient. That should be sufficient, as long as it holds in place. So, yeah. And those pins are isolated from each other. Also recommending to, of course, use good soldering practices. So that means whenever you are introducing those pins again to the board, those ones that you have lifted while going from the left to the right or from the top down, making sure that you're applying flux, soldering them again, making sure that they are solid, and gently prodding them with a plastic tool, and making sure that they're not shaking all over the place, or they're providing a good connection as they should be. So also making sure that none of the pads underneath are ripped or burnt or anything like that. It's just making sure that you're being as patient with this process as you can and doing your due diligence so that the result is what the expectation is. So take your time, do this very slowly. This is a sort of intermediate procedure. So if you break the pin, that's not ideal. And just make sure all of that is done as it should be. So when we return, we are going to be seeing the other side of this board, and we are going to be moving on to the next part of this installation process for the XStation. So here we are on the back side of the PlayStation console. If we zoom out just a little bit, we can see that the area where the quick solder board is going to live is in the downward left portion of the motherboard on this SCPH-5500 revision console. Going to zoom in a bit so that we can see what the quick solder board is supposed to look like when it is properly in place. It's going to be situated something like this. So we can see the alignment of the contacts. Maybe adjust it a little bit here so that each of the points are going to be accurately reflected here. Okay, something similar to this. Alignment's a little bit off, but maybe you get the general idea. However, before we are going to solder, there are via pads on the left and on the right that we are going to be lightly scratching so that we can remove some of the solder mask and apply solder to those points. So when we get back, I will zoom in on exactly which points those are, and we will see that pretty soon. All right, so the first point is in the same, apologies for the shaky camera, sort of in the same general area as we had the quick solder board. Over here, we have all of these components in this little column. And to the left of that, we have this little via here. So when you are scratching around this, you just want to be careful, making sure to scratch just enough. So something like that. Just very lightly scratching it. Yep, just something like that. And now, from there, we can go ahead and apply a little bit of flux. Let's go ahead and clean that off first, actually. So, clean it with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, get a little bit of flux, put some flux on there, and after we have done that, we can go ahead and, okay, the flux is burning. Let's go ahead and get a little bit of solder. And we can go ahead and, where is the end of this? Pre-tin our wire, just a little bit. That's all we need. And that's it. That's all we need. So that is the first via that we needed to prep. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the second via. Okay, so it's a little bit bright. There we go. So the second via is by this B marking. In the bottom left, there are these group of vias here. In the bottom left corner is the via which we are going to be scratching away a little bit. Just some very light pressure here. Just like that. Twist a little bit. There we go. And now we just, once again, clean up the points with some isopropyl alcohol. Nice and easy, just like that. And then we are going to go ahead and take a little bit of flux. And dab it on, just like that. Take a little bit of solder, waiting for the iron to reach temperature once again. There we go. just a little bit of solder down in the bottom corner here. Not as successful on this attempt. There we go. And there it is, right there, as it should be. Yep. Okay. So now that those two vias are prepped, we do have to desolder and remove one small resistor, which is going to be located next to the OSC V67.737 KDS813. This is going to be in the bottom right portion of this side of the motherboard. So when we get back, we will be taking a closer look at that. All right. So previously we have seen this B marker in the bottom left portion of the camera here. We are going to be moving towards this chip, is what it looks like, or this component. And to the bottom left of that, we have the small resistor, which we are going to be removing. So it is going to be this particular resistor on this console. So what we are going to do here is, once again, we are going to be taking a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, cleaning the pad and the surrounding area. Wait for it to dry for a little bit. And then we are going to take just a little bit of flux. Make sure that goes on the sides of that resistor. Take our soldering iron and wait for it to reach temperature. Going to hit one side of it, and then I'm going to hit the other side of it. And then from there, I think because there are a lot of surrounding components here, I am just going to remove this with a pair of tweezers. Okay, there we go. So one side has been lifted. Let's see if we can remove the other side. And there we go. Now this component has been removed. We will go ahead and place that over to the side. I really cannot emphasize how tiny these components are, even this far back in time. It's incredible. So after that, now we are going to have to connect the APLL pad from the quick solder board to that marked location. However, before we do that, we are going to be soldering the quick solder board to its relevant points and then connecting that wire to the relevant pad. So when we get back, we will be seeing the installation of the quick solder board first, and then we will transition to wiring to the pad left by the resistor. Okay, and now we are back to the area in which the quick solder board is going to be installed. Something that I'm going to do before that though, since there are several small points that need to be soldered to, we are going to go ahead and once again take some isopropyl alcohol. Just a little bit here. There we go. Take our Q-tip and just clean this general area of the board. Just as much as I can everywhere. So after that has been cleaned, I am going to be applying flux to very specific locations. Let's see. Let's try down here, over here, up here, this area, this area, here, maybe down here, over here, and yeah, and that's it. We'll just keep it like that for now. And of course, after the quick solder board is installed, we are going to be cleaning up a little bit as well. Now let's see if we position this just right. Let's go ahead and take a very tiny amount of solder. Wait for it to reach operating temperature first. Once again, my temperature is 340 degrees. Camera's in the way. What else is new? Okay. A little bit more. Okay. So now that those are tacked into place, we should be able to tack in the rest. Probably a common failure point in this. Yep, well, once again, camera is shaking. My apologies. Just, I may not have said this before, but I'll be sure to say it again. Doing this on the camera, I think it's not so much the on-camera part, it's just that the camera gets in the way. It's sort of annoying. Okay. Let's get a little bit more. Okay, and now these other 3 points. It's showing good. Not quite. Let's see. Okay. Let's try to add a little bit more flux to all these points. And I'll go over all of them again, just to make sure that they are all connected as they should be. Yep. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. Let's try a little bit more. Those look good. This looks good. Maybe let's go ahead and clean this so I could get a better idea of what I'm looking at here. Yep. All right. Let's see. Take a closer look, actually. It's in place. Those three. Yeah. There are some that just really did not get to where they needed to be. So I think starting from here, that's good. Not quite enough. Let me go ahead and put on a mask, and I'll be right back. Yep, a lot of smoke being produced from this. So I did want to get a sort of a smoke thing. Yeah, we could clearly see that that pad is not connected. So I'm going to have to go ahead and press down and apply solder to that. Whoops. Okay, let's take another look here. That's definitely connected, and that one, yeah, yes it is. Now these two in the middle, let's try. Taking a closer look at that. First viewing through the camera, and then from the side here, no bridges. Gonna have to check that later. Okay, now let's look toward the top over here. A little bit more soldering. Press down. Okay. That one looks, whoa, there we go. Looks to be connected. Let me try reflowing it just one more time. Yep, that's good. Now toward these three in the center over here. Let's try reflowing that. Okay, those look good as well. Over here on the top left. Let's see. Looks good. Over here in the top left. Let's see. Kind of hard to see, but nope. It's definitely not connected there. So let's go ahead and get a little bit more solder. Press down. Nope, no dice. Okay, let's try using a little bit more flux. And you know, this is the general process. Going back and forth, using flux, etc., etc. And after we put the flux, hold it down. Okay, now let's see. Okay, that's definitely connected now. I'm going to just hold it down again, and I think because this board does not necessarily live flat, there's a little bit of a bowing effect to it. There's going to be stress on these joints, and I think, you know, hopefully they don't eventually break. I think that it would be wise to actually connect a jumper in there. But in my opinion, if it works, then it works. So I don't know. I don't really have any other thoughts about it, at least for now. I think because if this does produce problems, I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, reflow the other points. And there we go. We are going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit. And when we come back, we will give it another little inspection and see what else this installation needs before moving on to soldering the APLL jumper to the resistor pad. Back once again. I think I'm going to actually take a little bit of paper towel to remove some of that sort of, it looks like a gooey effect, because the spotlight is on, and I just want to be able to get a better view of this, just a little bit. Okay, so now we can take a closer look at these joints. Some side angle views, closer to the front, moving along to the side. That particular fillet is actually bothering me a little bit. This one on the top left. Let's get a little bit more solder and touch it up. Just a little bit. There. looks like a crevice. I'm going to touch it up a little bit with flux, just a little bit. Put on solder, there, and touch. That might have been a little bit too much, but got the job done. Let's go ahead and clean that up a little bit. Do we have any bridges? Not from what I can see, not from what I can tell. Okay, well, let's go ahead and clean that up. Just a little bit. There. And take a closer look. Yep, it looks good to me. And then this top one over here, looking from the edge, it looks good. Looking from the edge on this one also looks good. The edges on these two. Maybe you want to touch that one. Or actually, looking off camera, it actually looks good. So it'll be fine. Maybe touch that one in the bottom. Just touch. That's it. And there you go. Now that the quick solder board has been fully installed, I can go ahead and install that APL jumper over to the relevant points it will connect to on the resistor. So, or on where the resistor used to live at least. And be right back. And we're back. So the point we're actually trying to solder to is above the desoldered resistor. So if we take a look here, so the desoldered resistor used to live here in between these 2 points. And the place we are going to be soldering that jumper to is below this square point over to this point right here. Over to APL to here, which is right above where the resistor used to live, just right here. Okay, so that being said, we will follow the same process as we have before. First, isopropyl alcohol on those 2 points, allowing that to dry. And then just a little bit of flux. Just a little bit of flux. There we go. Okay. And after that, we can go ahead and pre-tin the points. Let's get a little bit of solder. Pre-tin APLL. Just like so. Pre-tin that pad. Just like so. And now I can take a little bit of wire. Let's see. It's going to be something like this. Going to go ahead and strip this wire. Son of a... Yeah, sometimes that happens when I pull a little bit too hard. Really don't want to be pulling very hard on this thin wire. Okay. We can go ahead and just pre-tin this wire. Maybe I'll clip it just a little bit. Let's see. Yeah. Going to clip just a bit. Re-examining sort of how this is going to connect. Yeah. Okay. Just stripping the other end here. There we go. Now twist that end just a little bit here. Going ahead and pre-tinning this wire as well. There, just like that. Is this a little bit too exposed? I think it is. So we'll take one end here. Okay. Okay. That is one side. A little bit too long. Just a little bit too long. Okay. Yep. And there we go. I'll solder that wire. Let's take another look. Oh, no. I don't like the way that turned out. That was not good. Not a fan. It's just kind of hard to see. There. Let's see. Nope, not good. Now let's take another look. Yep, that looks better to me. Okay. Okay. So now that this jumper is soldered to that VL, the difficult part, so to speak, is now finished. However, we will move on to the lower part of the PS1 case, since it still needs to be prepared. And we are going to pan to that here in just a second. So here we are, looking at the bottom interior of the PS1 console. And so right now there's a little plastic post here which needs to be removed to prevent the installed flex cable from breaking. So let's go ahead and get my rusty little implements here to go ahead and remove that. And it didn't quite remove as much as I thought it would, so let's go ahead and continue at that. Let's see how much more we can take off, at least regarding this material. Luckily, it's a pretty soft plastic, so any kind of butchery is going to be pretty easy, I think. Hopefully. Well, once again, bump the camera. That is the nature of things like this. I guess I just have to get used to it. Okay. There's probably easier ways to do this. Yep. So I will say that I'm being pretty lazy right now. Not just, getting a pair of nail clippers or something. So definitely do not recommend doing it this way. I would just recommend getting a pair of nail clippers or something like that. Which is what I actually might do. It's literally the easiest part, and it's giving me the hardest time. They really build these consoles to last, don't they? Wow. So So here we are once again looking at the back side of the PlayStation 1 motherboard. We are going to be installing the flex cable now. This is going to be with the blue side up. Let's go ahead and lift, the cable holder up. So it pulls inward and then it lifts upward. We are going to go ahead and insert this cable with the blue side up. Let's see. It's not quite inserting. Take another look. Maybe from the side here. Let's see. Okay, well, I guess that's as much as it does. Then you close and clip the cable holder inward. And now it's inserted. And that's how much it goes. Clip it a little bit more here. There. Let's see. Looking slightly, ever so slightly uneven. So once again, pull outwards, gently, gently, lift upwards. Push the cable inwards like this. Maintain that pressure on the cable. Downwards, clip inwards. And there we go. There we go. And now the cable is installed. Okay. Let's go ahead and take the bottom shield. And actually, let's zoom out just a little bit if I can. Be right back. All right, now we're back. The back shield is on top of the motherboard here, on the other side of the motherboard, something like this. So it's going to be sitting this way. This cable is slotted through just like this. Now let's go ahead and put on the top case, which should be somewhere around here, that top heatsink. So it's going to be living on top here. And this part is critical. So we can see that the flex cable is coming from underneath this way. If we just install this shield on top of it, then it will be directly on top of the cable. So what we want to do is that there's this little slot in the side. That is where it's going to be slotted through. So we're going to slot it through. Unfortunately, it's coming away from the back shield, so gotta be careful with that. Yeah. Easy does it. Nice and easy. There. And this is more or less the final product. Let me zoom out a little bit so that we can get a better view of what this looks like. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. So it's going to look like this. The back case or the back shield sort of looking like this. The ribbon cable is slotted through and through this top little lip we can see here. So it just goes up like that. And the board will sit down and live as it used to, just like this. So now we are going to be preparing the PCB. So I'm taking that from here. pushing all 3 spacers into the XStation board. And it looks like they're going to be pushed from below. So let's go ahead and do that. Where did I put them? That's a good question. It's over here, actually. So let's go ahead and remove those from the packaging and put them in from below. Let's see. It looks like chip side is here, so it's going to be from down here. We have 1, we have 2, and let's see. I suppose we have 3 in the other corner. Let's just keep it there for now, in that corner. So it's like this. Okay. Let's see. I guess now the question is, well, where is this going to live? So if it goes like this. Let me sort of figure this out, and I'll be right back. All right, so it looks like we're gonna have to do some ribbon gymnastics here so that this connects correctly. We are going to be folding this cable, so looks like it's facing upwards. So ideally we want this blue side to be going upwards like this. So moving this way, then woof. This is all right. So something like this, I suppose. It's very strange. Oh, haha. Okay. I just realized something very important. I'll be right back. All right. So something that you should be aware of when installing the ribbon cable is that you need to make sure that this side with the blue indicator with this printed lettering, this end does not go into this part of the XStation. It's actually the other end of the ribbon cable that goes in. And maybe that could have been more clearly indicated. I don't know. Maybe I'm just dumb. Who knows? In any case, let's go ahead and do that. I think either way, it will probably still work if I found a way to sort of like fold it and crimp it or whatever. But let's just do things the right way for the first time. Just so that everything works as it should be. Okay. And now I'm just going to go through the other steps that I did before, and we'll be right back to mounting. Oh, I'm bleeding. That's nice. Mounting the heatsink back on to where we were before. We'll be right back. And we are back. Let's go ahead and get back into those sort of yoga shenanigans. So it says that we are going to be folding the cable like this. And then bending it. What am I doing? Excuse me. Let's see. Like this. It is bending twice. Okay. So, what do you want us to do? It's going to be living sort of in the middle like this. 1, 2. So it'll be bending this way and then bending again, sort of like this. So it's like 1, 2. once again with the blue part up. This needs to be opened first. So one. Okay. Something like that. I think I'm going to use some electrical tape to hold this down. No, that didn't really help. Okay. Okay. It's interesting how the most difficult parts of these mods are usually just, you know, the quality of life things. Just like very, very simple things that can sort of set this project in a little bit of a different direction. Oh, fun times. Okay. Let's see. So, in my opinion, I would recommend using something like, you know, one of those 3D printed mounts that you could find on Etsy or elsewhere. I don't have that, so I'm just sort of winging it. Let's see. We mounted the XStation on those posts. And now I'm going to reassemble the XStation. Not the XStation, the console. Oh wow, I'm getting tired. Alright. So let's see. What is next? So from the disk drive, we have a rubber spacer here. And this could be used to clamp the XStation in place. I wish I knew that earlier. Maybe I could get rid of this electrical tape. So let's just, you know, go ahead and do that. It's a little bit janky, but it does work. There we go. Putting this one on as well. Just like that. And it pops right back out. Yeah, great. Fantastic, guys. There. Okay, so before that pops back up, let's put on the front case again. Let's see how this is gonna work. So it's gonna go on like this, but I think before we do that, I'm going to make sure to unplug in the appropriate cables. Since I removed them a little bit earlier. Okay, there it is. There is, yeah, makes sense. All right, so now we have done that. Let's go ahead and place this one down. So it looks like because of those little things, there's those little rubber spacers, there's going to be quite a bit of downward pressure being applied when you screw in these screws once again when you reassemble this, because after this is closed, we can see that there's still a gap that is caused by those spacers, which means there's going to be a constant pressure downwards once you screw this in again, coming from this top case into the XStation. I think that's something to keep in mind when you are reinstalling this as well. But let's go ahead and close that up, reinsert those remaining screws. Actually, oh man, I am do as I say and not as I do, that kind of thing. So I neglected to reinstall these screws on the motherboard, and I need to do that first before I go ahead and, put this all together again. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back. All right, so now that the screws have been installed back into the motherboard, I can go ahead and close this up. And that pressure that I previously mentioned no longer exists because, of course, I was being neglectful, since this installation in general was not necessarily too complicated. There were a couple of tricky points, such as lifting the pins, making sure they were isolated, as well as, of course, the soldering itself to the quick solder board, which actually that was not too tricky at all. But I think this is more of an intermediate project. If it is something that interests you, then some recommendations I would make is making sure that you have the correct equipment, and making sure that you're being patient. That you're doing your due diligence, and that you are not rushing through any of the steps indicated, because that would be a mistake to make, for sure. It would be a very big mistake, and it could result in some unwanted issues. So there it is. It is now installed as it should be. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care.